Welcome back. Thanks for staying with me. We're on the second half of today's stories and world news. I'm Randall Jamias. Let's start the news from the outer space. Astronauts plucked a commercial cargo ship from orbit on Wednesday and attached it to the International Space Station, marking the reopening of U.S. supply line to the orbital outpost following the space shuttle's retirement last year. After a 2.5-day trip, Dragon cargo ship positioned itself 33 feet away from the ISS, which has been dependent on Russian, European, and Japanese freighters for supplies. Astronaut Akihiko Hoshide then used the space station's 58-foot-long robotic arm to grab hold of a grapple fixture on the side of the capsule at 6:56 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time as the spacecraft flew 250 miles, 402 kilometers above the Pacific Ocean. The Dragon's cargo includes a freezer to ferry science samples back and forth between the station and Earth. It is expected to remain docked to the station for about 18 days while the crew unloads its 882 pounds of cargo and fills it with science experiments and equipment no longer needed on the outpost. Next up, let's meet another Nobel Prize awardee. Brian K. Kobilka of Stanford University is one of the 2 American scientists awarded the 2012 Nobel Prize for Chemistry on Wednesday for research into how cells respond to external stimuli that is helping to develop better drugs to fight illnesses such as diabetes, cancer, and depression. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences said the $1.2 million prize went to Kobilka and Robert Lefkowitz of Duke University for discovering the inner workings of G-protein coupled receptors, gateways to cells that react to chemical messages. At a news conference at Stanford following the announcement, Kobilka said he was honored by the recognition and looking forward to advancing his research.
So what's really interesting and neat about it is you have a plasma membrane, and then you have our receptor, which has 7 transmembranes. And this little molecule is stuck on the top, which is representing a hormone, and it's activating this very large molecule on the inside of the cell. So it's how something small can be perceived by this really interesting receptor and transmit that information to a cellular protein that then goes on to turn on or regulate a large number of other proteins in the cell. So it was very exciting.
Chemistry was the 3rd of this year's Nobel Awards. Prizes for achievements in science, literature, and peace were first awarded in 1901 in accordance with the will of dynamite inventor and businessman Alfred Nobel. And talking about scientists and inventors, computer scientists at Zhejiang University have developed to fly a drone with mind power. The team says the technology will eventually allow people with disability to operate machines and live more independent lives. Here's the full story.
Xu Yipen is controlling this quadcopter with his mind. A handset fitted with neurosensors detects electronic signals produced by his thoughts and sends them to a laptop computer. The computer then processes them into commands that control the drone.
Our system is operated by human brain power. Through this headset, the brain signals are collected and sent to the laptop using Bluetooth. The laptop will then process these signals. After they are processed, it can distinguish them from one another.
The system works by detecting the brain's electronical activity, where Yu and his team have developed a software that processes those signals. It works by using computer algorithms to analyze static signals coming from the brain and converting them into commands for the drone.
If you want to use this thing, the hardest part is that it processes signals very quickly. When the signals arrive in the computer, there is always a lot of static information. It has to differentiate between good and bad information, and that relies on computer's analysis. Since the process is dependent on the equipment, we can only come to some sort of conclusion once it has finished its analysis.
While the handset is finely tuned to detect thoughts, the software needs refining to more accurately translate the signals into actionable commands. For now, right and left commands do not necessarily translate into right and left. Thinking right propels the copter forward, left sends it clockwise.
In the future, those who might really benefit from this are disabled people. It might be able to help them with tasks they're not capable of. Later, the average person might be able to use a brain control interface to control many things.
The team says that perfecting the technology will take many more years of research, but with their drone, they've already demonstrated that the concept of mind over matter has already taken flight. Shunjing, CCTV.
Here's some eco-friendly news. Costa Rican President Laura Chinchilla on Wednesday signed an executive decree banning the practice of shark finning in the Central American country. According to WildAid, an environmental group, approximately 73 million sharks are killed for their fins every year. Costa Rica's government estimated that 350,000 of these sharks are harvested in Costa Rican waters. Costa Rica's Environment Minister Rene Castro explained that only those who use sharks for food will be allowed to hunt them. Activists say that hunting for sharks' fins is a wasteful practice, as the sharks are dumped overboard and bleed to death after their fins are removed, wasting approximately 95% of the shark. The waters around Costa Rica are home to a diverse array of sharks. Shark populations have been falling worldwide, mostly due to overfishing to satisfy demand for shark fin soup in East Asia, particularly China, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. Another eco-friendly story: most scientists believe that the use of fossil fuels and deforestation are the principal contributors to climate change. But now, one team of researchers is pointing to what they say is another major source of carbon emission: the destruction of coastal ecosystems. Brian Murray, an economist at the Nicholas Institute for Environment Solutions at Duke University, says the global loss of mangroves, seagrass, and salt marshes sends more CO2 into the atmosphere than most countries on Earth.
Our best global estimates are that the losses are roughly 500 million to 1 billion tons of CO2 equivalent per year. And to put that in context, that's equal to about the annual emissions of the United Kingdom or Japan. And Japan is the 5th largest emitter in the world of any country. So what we found is that this is a significant amount, and it's a source of emissions that the Global Climate Agreement has largely overlooked.
James Forkurian, a professor of biology at the Florida International University, says the situation has been overlooked mostly because it has gone unseen. Unlike the burning of rainforests, most of the carbon in coastal ecosystems is stored in massive deposits in the soil beneath the vegetation.
Carbon that's been stored over millennia. So if we cut down and destroy these systems, that long-term storage of carbon that's been in there for thousands and thousands of years gets returned in a big puff up into the atmosphere.
The scientists found that these ecosystems are being destroyed at an alarming rate, especially in developing countries, where these coastal systems are being converted into farmland. The scientists hope these findings will change that at the UN Climate Change Conference in Doha next month. And to prevent climate change is to use renewable energy. The Greenough River Solar Project, just outside the small town of Rockaway in Western Australia State, is a joint venture between Western Australian state-owned Verve Energy and U.S. conglomerate General Electric. It is expected to generate 10 megawatts, enough to power 3,000 homes. Australia has committed to getting 20% of its power from renewables by 2020, but big coal and gas-based utilities are arguing for generation targets to be cut. The plant is General Electric's first investment in Australian renewable energy, and plans are already underway to eventually expand it to 40 megawatts. Australia currently gets about 10% of its electricity supply from renewable energy, about 2/3 of which comes from hydropower. Australia is one of the world's most ideal places for solar projects. And for our final note, let's have a toast with Romania. On the gentle slopes of the Dealu Mare, or Big Hill region, Winemakers are striving to make Romania the new world of wine in Europe. AFP has more.
The winemakers of Dealu Mare, a wine region in the south of Romania, located at the same latitude as the Bordeaux and Tuscan vineyards, eagerly await the 2012 vintage. Here are increasingly making upscale wine, moving away from the local tradition of mixing wine with sparkling water.
It's
clear that this area has potential, and we have a duty to make the most of this land.
Romania is the sixth largest wine-producing country in the European Union, behind Germany and Portugal. Its wines, which are very sweet and produced in mass quantities under the communist regime, have garnered a bad reputation abroad. But foreigners have decided to invest in some great varieties, such as the Fetăiesca Neagră, which has a taste of dried plum. Walter Friedel bought 82 hectares of vines in 2003, and today the Austrian produces some of the best wine in the country.
We see a new world inside Europe. It's Romania, it's Bulgaria, it's these new countries which now comes to Europe. So it's our personally new world, it's our Australia, our Chile.
Romanian wine is also experiencing a renaissance with Romanian consumers. Romania exports a tiny 3% of its production, far behind Italy and France. The majority of local wines are sold here, and new customers are now ready to pay the price to drink good wine.
Today, we sell Romanian wines for around €60, and they are worth the price. They get good reviews, and from customers who are international wine tasters.
Romanian wine is now looking to branch out further afield, to attract more foreign consumers.
And that's all we have for today. Stay tuned for the local news. I'll see you again next time.